A certain man was in a lot of financial trouble, and what had happened was he had a contract, so he got a loan from the bank to service the contract, and there was a delay in the payment. He used his house as collateral, so he at that point he only had a matter of days to pay back the loan. So he had called around and asked a few friends, and nobody could help him. So eventually he called a friend of his that he knew was really connected to a lot of people, a lot of wealthy people. So he said to the friend, and it was a lot of money. So he said to the friend, if you help me raise this money, I'll return it with 10% interest, and I'll return it within the next 2 months. However, I need this money urgently because he was on the verge of losing his home. So anyway, the friend later calls him back and gave him a number, a lady's number, said, look, that lady is ready to give you the money. She's not interested in your 10% interest, and she wants you to return it within the next 6 months. It seems like a good deal, right? So anyway, he calls the lady, and the lady sent an address and said, come and see me in my house. So he got there, and according to him, it was the most luxurious house. It was huge. It was a mansion, one of the most luxurious houses he had ever seen. Anyway, so he got there and everything, and he got into the house, all uniformed staff and everything. There was a tennis court, a basketball court, a pool area. It was a huge house. So he got into the house, and he was wondering who owns the house, who the lady's husband was. So he called one of the staff. So he was ushered into the waiting room when he got there. Now, this waiting room was bigger than a lot of people's homes, right? So he called one of the staff and said to the staff, who is your madam's husband? And the staff kind of looked at him blankly, like, what are you on about? Anyway, so the staff said to him, oh, are you friends with my madam? And he said, no, I just came to pick up something. So the staff said, oh, I see. Anyway, she'll be with you shortly. About 10 minutes later, a young lady came down the stairs. And according to him, she was in her very early 20s, yes? So the lady came to him and said, oh, you must be John. Let's assume his name is John. And he felt a bit offended because he was much older than she was. And he said, oh, yes, your mom asked me to come to pick up some money. And she said, no, I asked you to come. And he was dumbfounded. So she said, no, I asked you to come. So your friend said you need this so amount of money. I don't need your interest. You can return it within the next 6 months. And he was really surprised. Like, she's very young. So that means she owns the house and everything. So he thought something wasn't right. So he picked up his phone, he went to make a call and called another friend and told the other friend about the situation. Like, he really needed the money, but something wasn't right about the situation. And the friend said to him, whatever you do, run away. That doesn't seem right. Something is obviously wrong. Something is off about the whole situation. Just leave. So he went back into the house and apologized and said to the lady, you know what, I'm not interested in everything. And she said to him, oh, don't worry about it. If you need more money, I can give it to you, and I can give you a longer time to pay it back. And he was hooked. He thought about the possibilities and he took the money. Long story short, before the end of the second year, he had lost his family. His wife left, he lost a kid, he lost all his businesses, and things just went down the drain. He should have listened to his friend. He should have never accepted that money. But that's the thing about temptation. It's a strong desire or enticement to have or do something you know you shouldn't. And it's been that way since the beginning of time. The serpent in the story of creation, if you're familiar with it, had enticed Eve to eat of the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. Now, all forms of temptation covers 3 aspects: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. When Eve was tempted to eat of the apple, it was recorded that she saw that it was good for food, which is the lust of the flesh. This is a craving to satisfy your bodily needs. For instance, hunger for food, hunger for intimacy, which is sex, right? And then it was also recorded that she saw that the apple was pleasing to the eyes, which is the lust of the eyes, which is a craving to satisfy worldly possessions, money, power, material things. And it's not that these things are bad, but when it's acquired at the detriment of your morals, that's when it becomes bad. Then it was recorded that she believed it will make one wise, which is the pride of life. So Eve fell into the temptation of being wiser than God. A lot of the times we're very grounded or very prayerful, and we believe we will identify temptation when it presents itself. But what if we do not recognize it as temptation? What if it's well packaged and it seems more like common sense? Let me tell you another story. So I had a family friend, this was years back, and his parents were friends with my parents. He had lived all his life in Switzerland, and at the time he was married to a Caucasian woman. The marriage lasted about 6 years, and then they got a divorce. He was extremely wealthy. He was doing very, very well for himself. So he later moved back to where his parents resided, which was where I resided as well, because his parents were aged. He wanted to live closer to them. So a few years later, he lost his parents in an accident, and I went to pay him a condolence visit. We weren't that close, but obviously, because he was a friend of the family, I did that. So another friend of their parents that I knew quite well, an older woman, she called me and said, "Oh, did you hear about so and so person?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, so did you visit them?" I said, "Yes, I paid him a condolence visit." And she said, "Oh, okay, good. So you're still there." I didn't quite understand what she was talking about, so I said, "No, I'm home." And she said, "Why? Didn't you like the house?" I was a bit confused. So I said, "Yeah, the house is okay." She said, "Oh, well, when you got there, how many luxury cars did you see?" I said, I didn't count. She was like, "Well, I'm going to tell you. There were so and so 7 luxury cars, this, that. This is somebody that has homes all over the world, something. He's single, you're single. I don't understand why you had to go back or why you couldn't stay there with him, and you guys can make something work." So I said to her, "We don't even have that rapport. There's absolutely nothing like that." And she said, oh, okay. So how old are you now? Are you a child? Why do you need a rapport? Oh, you're waiting for God to serve you a husband on a platter of gold. Oh, I feel sorry for you. Now, he's grieving. When people are grieving, they have a hunger for either food or intimacy, which is sex. That this is when you should take advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that he's grieving and wiggle your way into his life. That's how he's done. That's how women do it. She said, "If you don't make use of this opportunity, you may never get another one like this again. Don't you want to be the one controlling all that wealth? He's very wealthy. He's this, he's this. Wiggle your way into his life. Right now, he's grieving." And I was kicking myself for days. Why? Because I couldn't understand why I just couldn't go through with it. Mind you, I wasn't even a saint. It just didn't feel right to me to take advantage of somebody in that way. So after a while, I just let it go. Come 2022, I ran into a relative of theirs, right? And as I was talking to him and saying to him, "Oh, I've not seen him forever. What happened?" And he said to me, "Well, he moved back to the UK after the burial. He just decided to stay in the UK." "What burial?" And he said to me, "Oh, you didn't know?" Then he said that family friend had always been HIV positive, but he was managing it quite well. However, after he lost his parents, he let himself go because he was really distraught. He didn't see a point to living anymore, so he stopped taking his meds, he stopped taking care of himself, and he passed away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. If I had fallen into the temptation to take advantage of somebody because of money, it may have cost me my life. And that just gave me a renewed hope in God, right? To always trust my intuition and do the right thing, no matter the circumstances. For me, it was totally unacceptable to use a moment of weakness against another person. Much like when Jesus faced temptation in the wilderness. He had just fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, so he was in a weakened state when the devil tried to use that against him. So the devil said to him, "If you're the Son of God, turn that stone into bread," knowing fully well he'll be hungry, which is the lust of the flesh to satisfy his bodily needs, his hunger. But Jesus resisted. Then the devil said to him, "Well, if you're the Son of God, cast thyself down, jump from this place, and angels will catch you." Now, Jesus could have wanted to prove a point that he was really the Son of God and did that, which would have been the pride of life. But Jesus resisted. Then finally, he took him to a very high place and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and said, "Well, I'll give all that to you if you just bow down to me." Now, Jesus could have used that as a shortcut to rule the world as opposed to going through crucifixion, right? Which would have been the lust of the eyes, but Jesus resisted and the devil left him. We're to learn quite a lot from these stories. Firstly, we're to ask God for any hidden desires we may have that is not of God, so as not to fall into temptation. For instance, desiring wealth is not a bad thing. However, idolizing money, power, and people over God is when it becomes bad. The next thing we need to learn is that anybody can quote the scriptures, right? Which is why it's good to know the word of God for ourselves, so that when it doesn't align with the word of God that we know or with your morals, then you know it's wrong. See, the devil quoted Psalm 91 to Jesus. However, he distorted it to suit his own agenda. He said to him, and he shall give his angels charge over you, but omitted the part of to keep thee in all thy ways. And he went on to say, oh, they shall bear you up lest you dash your foot against a stone. So he distorted the word to make Jesus fall into temptation. Then we're to learn not to test God, right? Because God expects us to do everything in our power to stay safe, and then he will protect us from dangers unknown to us. What we're not supposed to do is do something we clearly know is wrong and claim that heaven helps those who help themselves. Oh, the word of God says I should be as wise as a serpent. We're not supposed to do that. And finally, if you resist the devil, he will flee from you. Namaste.